Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever ProfileTree podcast. So, my name is Rennell. I'm a digital strategist here at ProfileTree. Our discussion today is about digital strategy, especially for small and medium sized businesses. I will be touching on websites, SEO, social media, AI use, and so much more. But what we'll mainly cover in this podcast is the kind of support clients need when they're working through all of this. So just to kick things off, and I'm sorry to put you in the podium, Emer, but yes, just curious to know from your side of things in terms of like client support, like what kind of stuff are you seeing? What are people asking for help with day to day? Are they mostly asking for support with websites? Would you say SEO? Or is it more around getting their head around using digital tools in general?
So we would have a little bit of everything. Generally, like a lot of what we work with would be websites and giving people like an online presence. But in terms of digital strategy, I think we've seen a rise in this over the last 12 months in terms of clients coming to us just for assistance with forming a digital strategy, understanding what digital strategy is and how they can really use it to their advantage, depending on what the outcome that they want to achieve is. So obviously a profile tree, we've got our commercial side and then we've also got the training side. And we want to focus on empowering our clients and educating them rather than having them depend on us. And I think that's a massive thing that we like to focus on when it comes to strategy, particularly for SMEs, because obviously if a client was dependent on us for their strategy for years upon years, that's a massive, financial burden that they may not have the budget for. So the first thing that we would kind of look at is the objective, what kind of strategy they want to build and what kind of audience they want to target. And then we would go from there in terms of, looking at things in range of the priority of what's most important. I think you mentioned, Rennell, that it would be like, is it websites? Is it social media? Is it digital strategy? I think that's kind of part of what we try to do in the initial stages is identify what's most important. Some people come to us saying, I really want to build on a strategy, but I also want a new website. So you kind of have to identify, okay, which out of those is the most important part first, and then we'll tackle that. But we do kind of have a wide range of things that we would cover as part of strategy, which I think a lot of which would kind of tie into what both of you guys would work on in your department as well. So yeah, a little bit of everything kind of. It really just depends on the client and what their initial goal is, which we would work through at the beginning of their project and then kind of take it from there.
So you do handle quite a bit then. So
Yeah. A little
that's
bit of everything.
just a tiny bit. So okay, touching base as well with website. So I know we've got our thankfully we've got an expert here, Kadisha. So Kadisha, what do you think about website for SMEs for digital strategy? What would your point be on that one?
From a digital strategy point of view, it's kind of overlooked. Most small businesses, medium businesses, they'll build websites almost like a tick box. So like you'll get it done and it looks good and you move on. But a website should actually be one of the core parts of a digital strategy that you think of from the beginning, and it needs to exist to help meet your goals. So when you're planning a website build, the first thing that you actually need to think and ask yourself is, what is this website for? What's the job? Is it meant to bring in leads? Is it meant to educate or bring awareness to a certain topic? Is it to sell products, drive bookings? Without clear goals for your website specifically, you end up with a site that's might look good, but it does nothing for you functionally. And it defines the road later on whenever you are building the site. It will define, what platforms you're going to use, what apps you're going to pay for. And it's really important that you plan in the like for the future, basically, what you're wanting the website to do, because it can affect a lot of things down the line. So having goals for your overall business is important, but then the website itself is its own goals. And there's lots of different parts to it. So like, for example, the platform that you use, depending on what your goal is, you favor one platform over another. If you know that, your main goal is to sell your products or sell your services, then you're looking more of a, maybe like Shopify or an e-commerce based product, or e-commerce based platform. Same way, maybe if you're thinking, okay, well, I want to sell products, but maybe it's like more of a drop shipping type of thing, then you're looking at a completely different platform altogether. So it's really important to plan out the goals for your website specifically and then build on that as you're building the website. And a good looking website is also just as important, but it also needs to be functional and
essentially save you a lot of work down the line as well.
Perfect. Just out of the blue,
Mhm.
what are the common mistakes do you see SMEs make with their websites? Like, would they just be thinking, okay, have this digital presence, all right, I'm just gonna leave it, or what have you experienced over with clients?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is that they, especially with small businesses, when they don't have a lot of knowledge on websites and how good they can be to help you in your business, the main thing is that they don't plan out what they want their website to do. So you'd have clients come in saying that, yes, I've got this website, looks good, but I have no way to sell anything on my website. There's no e-commerce built into it. So then you're spending more time now building that into the platform, and that can cause issues if the platform isn't built to handle e-commerce, or if it can be an extra cost to get that built in. So the biggest mistake that we see is that there's no clear goal. It's just a bunch of brochure looking sites that are nice to look at but don't do anything. Another common mistake is not having enough call to actions on their website. So essentially, a call to action, we call them CTAs. They're just little buttons that are strategically placed across your website, different pages, to kind of guide the user into making the action that you want them to do, whether that's to get in touch, book a appointment, get a quote, buy now, something like that. So they'll have a bunch of content showing out their work, and they're showing their content, and they're reading all about them, but there's no kind of clear way to then get them to do an action. And it's really important that when you're building out a website, you're kind of guiding the user through every stage of it. You're guiding them through, okay, this is what we do, this is what we're about, here's our work, and here's a way to get in touch, or here's a way to book our service. So there's not a lot of clear call to actions across websites, or across their pages at least. So that's another issue that I see. So a website needs to have a purpose, a plan, and like a path. Otherwise, it's just content that's not really doing anything. Another thing I would say, it's opposite ends of the spectrum. I either see a homepage that's really sparse and not a lot of content, or I see a homepage that's really overloaded with content and can be overwhelming. It's getting that balance as well. So especially with homepages, it's one of the most important pages on your website. It's typically the first impression that users will get, or potential customers will get. So it needs a lot of clarity on like who you are, what you offer, and it needs to be as obvious as possible. That's usually made up of things like, strong headline, a short sort of subheading to kind of concisely explain your values, and a single call to action, and to make sure that that kind of content is visible, what we call above the fold. So essentially, people see that as soon as the page loads. They don't need to scroll just to see that important bit of information. So, if someone lands on your website and they can't figure it out within a few seconds, they're gone. So it's really important you get that messaging out there. So from a content perspective, it's don't just say what you do, explain why it matters and why it's useful for potential customers, and use like, testimonials, reviews, awards that you might have gotten in within your industry. It makes a huge difference in conversions as well. So yeah, those well, that would be a common sort of mistake I see sort of within homepages, and it's a really important one as well.
Both of your perspectives, because I know you both have experience with websites, but also with digital strategy. Do you think there's like a sense of importance for SMEs that you can't just kind of focus on one element of digital strategy? So, for example, you shouldn't just focus on your website, or you shouldn't just focus on socials. Do you think there's a requirement to have, like, in order to have a good strategy, that we should be connecting all of the different kind of points that can build into one larger strategy?
Just add to that, I would say yes. Like the biggest mistakes SMEs make with digital strategy is that a lot of people would jump in with no clear goals. Well, getting back to your main question, social media is one of the ones I would focus on personally first before jumping onto a website. So a lot of people just think, right, okay, I just need that website here and now. I need content, and I'm not going to cater to it, and they leave it dormant. Maybe you can agree with me on that one, Kadisha. I don't know, as a web developer, but yeah, I think social media would be one of your best platforms first, just to get some direction. It doesn't mean that you need to open up every single social media platform in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, even if let's just say you're a planning business, you don't need to be on TikTok if you don't need to be on TikTok, because a lot of people think, oh, I'll just open up every single social media platform that I know, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and then just call it a day. And then you'll start to get overwhelmed, you'll start to get stressed, and guess what? You've lost your digital strategy. as I say, like people would jump onto building a website, then what's their clear goal? Number one, you have to make sure you've got some sort of a plan. How much money are you going to spend on this? Again, Kadisha, you can fill me in on this with the budget, and what sort of platform am I actually going to use? Is this going to be worthwhile? So, um, going on now, actually, go ahead, Kadisha. You fire on. What do you think about that? With the type of platforms you'd recommend to get started with in terms of website. Just maybe you can bash me a wee bit if I'm wrong.
But budget is such an important thing, especially for small and medium-sized businesses. And again, as well, it's one of those things that people think is going to be really, really expensive, which it can be, but there's a lot of cost-effective options out there that are also really user-friendly because I get a lot of clients that have a small kind of limited budget when it comes to website, but also limited knowledge as well. And training can get expensive. So there's a few platforms out there that can suit a lot of people. From an e-commerce point of view, if you are wanting, a nice kind of e-commerce, easy to use e-commerce website, Shopify is a great one. They've got pretty good plans and they've got a good kind of free trial as well. That I think it's like £1 for the first 3 months, so you can really test it out for a while before committing to a plan. But it's a really good one for e-commerce. It's really easy to use on the back end. Shopify have their own kind of knowledge base with a lot of tutorials, videos. We also have our own videos on Shopify as well. So there's a lot of ways that people can, learn independently if they can't afford to pay for, more formal training. If it's more for like blog type content or not so much e-commerce style, Wix is also a really good one. Wix editor is really, really easy to use. It's all very drag and drop. Click here if you want to change the content as well. Again, also really cost effective. They have a free plan, which I don't really recommend to use as there's ads, but even the standard core plan, I think it goes on offer sometimes, but it's like £9 a month or something. Like it's very affordable for a lot of people. If you have a little bit more of a tech background, or if you feel more comfortable in playing around with builders and you want to get a little bit more of a custom feel, you could go for WordPress and Elementor free or Elementor Pro combination. And all of these solutions, they can be scaled up and they can be a bit more cost effective. With WordPress and Elementor, unlike Shopify and Wix, which are kind of, have their own hosting plan, you will need your own hosting plan for WordPress. But there's loads of hosting providers out there that do good offers on WordPress, specific WordPress hosting as well. So there's a lot of tools that you can use, and WordPress, Elementor, Wix, Shopify, they're all very user-friendly. There's so many AI website builders out there that are coming out. I don't recommend all of them, but they're fun to play around with, just even to get an idea of design. There's like Durable AI, and then I think even GoDaddy having like an AI builder. So if you are looking for your own hosting as well, you can use GoDaddy's AI builder. Wix as well have their own AI builder. They've got some AI built in. So there's a lot of ways you can get easy to use, solid and reliable website built. I would say Wix, because it's been around for a long time and there's really good customer support, it's probably one of the most reliable ones. Same with Shopify and same with WordPress. Some of the newer AI ones, they're good, but again, they're new. So it's really important to understand what your budget is, research what the plans are, how that would look annually if you are gonna commit to one of those plans. And then also think about your own kind of knowledge and technical background. Are you comfortable using certain tools? Are you comfortable even exploring, and do you think you could learn a bit more? If not, you might want to stick to something a bit more basic like Shopify and Wix, or if you feel like you can go into a little bit more of a custom development, then you can do WordPress and Elementor build together and see how that works as well. There's lots of options. It's all about taking the time out and just planning it and seeing what you're comfortable with, basically. And there's so much resources out there as well for all of those platforms to be able to learn yourself without having to pay too much for any kind of like formal training, essentially.
Right. That's good amount of knowledge there. So there you go, guys. If you ever want to get yourself a website, there's a couple of points that Kadisha has made. So thank you very much for that. So another thing as well is that SMEs need to connect their channels. So what I mean by this is you can't just have your website separate. Again, Kadisha, you let me know. Maybe Emer, you might have some expertise on this. And another thing is with social media, you can't have that separate either. There's on-page SEO and off-page SEO, and a lot of people tend to forget this. Now, your social media can't just be doing their own thing, and your website can't be left static. And support isn't just there to fix things when everything goes wrong. I'm guessing, Emer, you may have a lot of people coming to you being like, fix this or do that, and thinking, do you have to handle it when they can actually handle it themselves? Am I wrong or am I right in saying that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I touched on earlier, like when we are offering training or with any of our website projects, for example, the training is such a key element of this because we want to like educate you on how you can kind of do all of these things yourself. It's not a case of us saying, here's your website, see you in 12 months, because that's not the case. We want to have an ongoing relationship with our clients, but we also want to empower you to feel like you know how to use your website and you know how to update your content, because that's such a key part of your digital strategy overall, especially where your website is concerned. And making sure you're updating your content, making sure there's fresh content on your website every month, just to make sure that Google is seeing that you're a real website with real content that's being updated constantly. So that's something that we would definitely focus on. We do try to encourage clients, if something breaks on your site, obviously we're here to help, but we would also provide little tips and tricks. Here is how we fix this, if it ever happens again, or send over a little training video just to kind of let the client see exactly what was broken, and obviously providing it's nothing serious like a coding change or anything like that. In most cases, clients would then see that and then, they've been able to fix it themselves. So we definitely get a little bit of everything coming in.
That's amazing to hear. So, yous always recommend then, well, I say use, but us here at ProfileTree, we always recommend people to create blog content, and we don't obviously just leave you hanging. A website is something that you should treat as a little baby. Like I always like to say to my clients, is feed it as much content as possible, and that is something that is a big mistake that some clients, I would say, here at ProfileTree do, which is some people leave their website untouched for
Yeah.
very long time. So, and then you're thinking, so you don't have you don't have the traction. So this is why, because always treat your blogs as an extension or FAQs, because there's a lot of different areas there for the site to build on. You don't just have web pages and services and call it a day. Just a question for you, actually, Kadisha. Well, from your side, how important is it that website reflects the messaging or offers being pushed through social or campaigns? What would you say about that?
Yeah, really important. If you have different platforms, like if you've got email marketing going out, you've got social media platforms, and you've got website, it all needs to be really cohesive, not just in look, but even just the messaging. Different ways you can do that. If you have a blog section, for example, on your website, you can share those blogs on your social media. And again, you're kind of bringing over, that'll help you kind of tie in the messages or the messaging between all your platforms, but also help bring over some of your social media traffic onto your website, which is a good way to kind of bring over more traffic onto your website. Also just making even simple things like making sure that your social media platforms are all linked properly on your website. Like it's such a small thing, but it's missing, but that kind of disconnect can really put users off. Basically, you want to make it as easy as possible for users to find your website, your social media links, and just make sure that the content and the messaging across all of the platforms that you have are the consistent, basically. And it's good also, like what you mentioned before about not needing to have every single social media platform, because I get that question a lot. Like a lot of people are worried that they don't feel like TikTok fits in with their brand, but if they're not on TikTok, are they going to lose followers? And that's not the case at all. You can't just open a platform for the sake of it. It does need to kind of work with your brand and messaging, because if it doesn't, that can also put people off as well. People can feel, why are they making videos like this is not their brand. So it's just making sure that the messaging is clear and consistent across your platforms, and that you're updating as much as possible, like how you can handle. Because if you're updating so much on your website but there's no updates happening on any of your social media platforms, or if one social media platform has more posts than another social media platform, that kind of disconnect is noticeable, and it does make an impact on people deciding whether or not to use your service or not. So it is important, and it's noticeable as well. So it's just making sure that you put on your plate what you can update, even if it is maybe just one social media platform. If you're doing that well, that's fair enough, because if you're having too many that you can't control or can't focus on, I would say that will have more of a damage to your potential customers than having all these platforms open and not really doing so much with them.
I agree. It's literally just do what you can, and if you're
Yeah.
unable to do it with that time, schedule it ahead. There's several different platforms out there, such as Meta Business Suite. If you do have a Facebook or an Instagram, and then you've obviously got your scheduling for blogs as well on Wix. I'm pretty sure, and then maybe on WordPress. So yeah, you've got all those
Mhm.
to look ahead for. You don't have to do everything at once, guys. So don't
Yeah.
put too much on your plate. So just getting to nearly wrapping this podcast up. The We have talked quite a bit now on the obviously the do's and don'ts, but what we haven't really covered is what to focus on first in a digital strategy, especially for someone who really is just starting out and they're nervous, they're scared. Obviously, what am I going to do here? So, a question for you, Emer. And I'm sorry again. So, from what you've seen, especially with client support, do clients actually know what they need when they come in, or are they just a bit lost and hoping that we'll steer them? What's your thoughts on that?
So it really depends on the client. In most cases, if clients don't have a lot of experience with SEO or strategy, they'll come to us with a goal in mind. So the goals can range from increasing brand awareness of, their offerings, their services, etc., getting more leads, getting more people ringing up and making appointments and different things like that. So we'll usually start out with, where they're currently at and what their objective is with the strategy. We'll usually look at things like how their website is performing. If it's a website based strategy, which I would say most of our strategy clients are website based, be that whether it's optimizing what you've got on your site already in terms of content, if that's doing some blogs per month, and if we're doing some backlinking to help with your domain authority. So, a lot of the strategy that we would kind of implement would be that. And we would often advise clients that the most important thing to remember with strategy is it's not an overnight job. Strategy is definitely a marathon, not a sprint, because we would usually advise that we have a few retainers that we would use for strategy, and these are a minimum of 6 months, because that's generally, maybe within 3 or 4 months you'll start to see the content that you've added to the site and the optimized content, whatever it is, and being crawled, and Google will then index and start to trust your site. But you can't expect that to happen overnight. And I think that's a really important thing to note, because obviously if you're doing a couple of blogs every week, that's amazing. And that's a really good kind of quick fix in terms of getting those results faster. But when you're having kind of a monthly retainer for a strategy, it's important to note that if you're not maybe doing a little bit on the side as well, if you're only doing something once a month, you are going to kind of have to wait to see those results, just because, as I said, marathon, not a sprint. We definitely have to wait and to see those results. And as long as you're hitting all your target keywords, if you're, looking at the opportunities on Google, if you're kind of looking at the searches and keywords that you can target with your content, then there should be no problems kind of hitting your milestones. It's just important to give yourself the time to do so.
Even with the SEO strategy, like it is something that you're constantly having to work on. And the same is also with website. I think the other thing that um people also think with website is, okay, we've got it up and I don't need to check the metrics or do anything like that anymore. But that's also really important. And I think whenever people don't see like immediate SEO improvements, they just think, oh, it's not worth it and I don't need to do any of this anymore. But it does take time, but that doesn't mean that you don't keep, adding content, you don't check the performance regularly every now and again. That's still important that you do that, you keep maintaining it. So having that as well as part of your digital strategy, just not just leaving your website as it is, constantly use GT metrics to see, are there any performance factors that I can work on? Is there enough content on this page, on this blog post? And then just keep seeing it, because especially if you are making changes onto your website, you never know what's going to affect the performance of it. So making sure that you have that check-in, every other week or every week, because you never know what can come up. It's not just a case of, oh, the performance is great today, and I'm going to make this update, I don't need to check anymore. You do still need to keep working on it as well. It's the same as if you had like a physical shop, like you would do maintenance on your physical shop as well. You wouldn't just leave everything how it is. You wouldn't leave everything disorganized. You do the same with your website as well. So think of it as the same thing, really. Especially if that is your main point of where people are going to find you and where you're going to get the most, customers from.
We would usually use the analogy of your website is like a car, and you wouldn't buy a car. I know, Rennell, you're gonna love this one. You wouldn't buy a car and not get it serviced for
Yeah.
2 or 3 years. So your website should be the same. If you are investing a lot of money in your website, it's so important to keep it serviced, keep it checked, because if not, little problems are obviously going to crop up as your website gets older, as the different plugins that you've used on the site get older. We need to make sure that they're constantly being updated, refreshed, making sure that there's nothing broken on it, and if it is broken, fixing it as soon as possible so that's not impacting the performance of your website and the overall ranking.
Even as your traffic grows as well, as more and more people are coming onto your website needs to be able to handle that as well. So stuff like that, you always need to check your website and just make sure that it can handle what it is that you're asking it.
Yeah, I agree. Like I was gonna say there, like a lot of people don't actually know there's free tools that you can use out there. As simple as keyword surfer as a Chrome extension. Like that's perfect. You could just research some keywords to help you out with blog content. Even if you don't have the budget for getting someone to do your content for you, there's AI tools out there as well, such as ChatGPT, Claude.ai. There's probably so much more as well, like Perplexity and stuff. And yeah, no, like a lot of people don't take advantage of Google Analytics or Google Search Console. So those are literally like the key areas where people can use. You don't need to rely on someone to fully sit down with you and be like, right, okay, this is what you need to do. You could just set your own plan, even if it again is a budget, especially for a smaller business. They're not going to have a whole amount of money to spend on one area. So always consider free tools out there. There's plenty, and ones that we probably haven't even covered, guys. So you probably agree. So, folks, what do you think? Is that have we covered everything in today's podcast? Are you satisfied?
I think we have.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, yes, that's probably a good place to wrap it up. I think the main takeaway here as an SME is digital strategy isn't just one thing, it's how everything fits together. So, whether it's going to be your website, your social media, SEO, or even the support you get along the way, it all needs to be aligned if you actually want to see results. So, guys, thanks again, Emer, Kadisha, for jumping on our podcast today. Hopefully, this gave you folks some useful insight to anyone running or growing a business online. So, yep, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.